everybody, and thank you for watching this video. If you haven't seen any of my videos before, my name's Bernie Wall and I am an IELTS trainer. I was also for some time an IELTS examiner, and I've also written IELTS material and checked IELTS material. So I've had quite a long career with the IELTS exam. And today I want to share with you another case study. So this is from one of my students. I work a lot with students, particularly on a one-to-one basis. And I specialize in working with students who need high bands, so 7s and 8s generally, and those who have taken the exam maybe a few times. In this particular case, it was just twice. But some students I've worked with have taken the exam 10, 11, 12, 13 times. Some I've heard of other students who've taken it 20 times. And I work with students who are taking serial test takers and they haven't got the score that they want. So in this video today, I want to introduce another of my students, a successful student, and just explain a little bit about how we worked and what made the student successful in their IELTS, so that hopefully you can pick up a few tips for how you can improve your success in your IELTS exam. And if you are interested in finding out more about my programs or my IELTS Champions Club, which is a club for IELTS students to study in, but also to communicate with each other in, then please, my details are below this video. So please feel free to contact me at any time and I'll jump on a call with you and we can discuss your IELTS, where you are, where you need to be, and how to make that happen. Okay, so let me share this story with you. This is, oh, just a moment. I think I need to put it on slideshow. Right, sorry about that. Okay, so let me just go back and share that properly now. So this student was a doctor, and it's a little while ago now, but it was a doctor from Japan, and he had been given a job offer. He was actually a surgeon, a heart surgeon, and he had been offered a job at a big London hospital. He was quite a well-known doctor in Japan and I think internationally too. And this job he was very excited about. But in order to take up the position, he had to have the IELTS. He had very good English already because he'd done a lot of international conferences and other training. So his English was very good. And he needed typically what doctors do need for the UK, which was 7.5 overall and 7 in each part. And he'd taken the test, 3 times actually, I think I said 2. He'd taken the test before while in Japan, but he hadn't got the scores he wanted. And so the hospital had suggested he come to London, which is where I was living at the time, and take the exam there. And perhaps by being immersed in an English speaking environment, it would help him to be more successful. His main issue that he had problems with was the listening. Okay, so it was quite a scary journey. The reason for that is that the stakes were very high. He had just 1 month to get this band, and if he didn't get it, then he wouldn't be able to take up the position. So there was an awful lot riding on this. Curtains, I don't know if you know that expression, but curtains means it's closed, that's the end. So he had 1 more chance and 1 month to take that chance. And so there was a lot of pressure on him and a pressure on me too. And the other thing is that I was about to move house to another part of the country. So that meant that there wasn't any sort of comeback if he didn't get it from my point of view either. So it was quite a scary journey. Now, in his favor, he had a really incredible work ethic, very dedicated, and he was absolutely raring to go. And he had a very forensic approach, which I like, because I believe that I also have a forensic approach to IELTS. In that, I like to look at the, you know, my keyword searching in reading. I look at lots of small words. When I'm marking writing, I don't let anything go. I'm very meticulous about looking at everything as well as the big picture. So we suited each other very well from that. And it was going to be a very intensive study, as you can imagine, just 1 month. So the idea for him was total immersion. So he would be studying with me on the IELTS, but he was also going to go into the hospital to his potential department and shadow some of the other surgeons there, and also get involved in something, not as a doctor, clearly, because he wasn't allowed to do that, but as an observer, and discussions and things. So this would make for a total immersion in English, which should help altogether. Right, so the first day I met him was the 2nd of January. And he had just arrived on the 1st, the evening before. And when I met him at the hospital, he asked me if I was his first student for that year. And I said, yes, actually, he was. So he handed me a bottle of champagne, because he said, if I am your first student, there is a lot of luck. And the bottle of champagne was a symbol of luck, which was very kind of him. But it was also a nice sort of image and a nice symbol of our work together. He was lucky in that he had the total commitment of the colleagues and the employer. They were all behind him because they really wanted him to come and work at the hospital. So they were ready to move heaven and earth to get him through this exam. So, and he was ready to do all it takes. We were all ready to do all it would take to make this happen, and nothing would be left to chance. So it's quite a good position to be in. But it turned out to be also a very enjoyable experience, certainly for me, and I'm pretty sure for him too, because when you study IELTS and English at that level, I think you gain a lot more in your language and cultural experience that you might not get if you were in your own country doing it, or you might not get if you're doing it by yourself. And I think that's one of the real pluses of working with a teacher. It's more than just getting your IELTS score and your IELTS improved. It's also learning a little bit about somebody else's culture and a little bit more about English too. So we did an assessment and worked out what was needed, and it was clear that a lot would have to be done on listening. So that included things like sounds, because there were certain sounds he just didn't hear when he was listening. We also had to work on isolation in listening. So trying to listen for some individual words, which is something you have to do in IELTS, of course. Individual words, individual phrases, S's on the end of the word, all this minute sort of work for listening. He wrote quite well, but his writing was a little stilted, and it needed to be more natural, and it needed a lot more flow to it. And we needed to practice speaking, because there are particular issues with speaking for Japanese speakers, and we wanted to work on some of that pronunciation and also introduce some everyday sort of language that while in Japan he wasn't actually exposed to. And I was fully certain that some of this language would come in from his afternoons at the hospital. And we would meet 3 mornings a week for 3 hours. And in the interim, he would have a lot of work to do. Okay, so that was the plan. Now, the actual study plan was that we would work through the different IELTS tasks. We needed to improve vocabulary, we needed to improve the skills and confidence. I gave him homework every single day that he did between the lessons, and he was in the hospital as well. But most of the time he was not at the hospital or in my lessons. He would be working on IELTS and English. And he was always hungry for more study material. In fact, at one point, I thought I was going to run out of things. So we did a lot of work on grammar and vocabulary. We did work on pronunciation, and of course the listening, which was the weakest point. But it wasn't onerous. Although we worked hard and we had a lot to do, it wasn't onerous. It wasn't hard work. It was rather like having a plant that you're nurturing and you're watching it day by day growing and growing. And I think that's what IELTS is like. If you nurture it and you put in the bits that it needs, so if it needs water today, or it might need some food tomorrow, all of these small things help to make it grow and blossom. And it's the same with IELTS. You know, some students need a bit of help with listening, others might need more vocabulary, somebody else might have a problem with reading, and another person might need some speaking practice. But by working on those things, you can make your plant, your IELTS plant, if you like, grow and prosper and become very beautiful. Okay, he had an amazing study ethic, great attention to detail, probably being a surgeon. So he dissected everything. He was precise and accurate. He was always looking to learn new vocabulary and had a great deal of dedication. So we were both rolling up our sleeves, doing what needed to be done. And very soon we started to see the benefits. And when I say very soon, probably in the second week, these things started to happen. Fluent speaking, higher and higher scores in reading and listening, and the writing developing and becoming more accurate. That means no grammar mistakes, no spelling errors, and also more stylish. He was doing academics, so the style became more formal and academic. And this is a process which takes time. Okay, so the month ended. He took the exam and then went immediately back to Japan, and I moved house. Normally, if my students take the exam, I ask them to give me a little feedback on how it went. First of all, how did they feel it went? Secondly, what the questions were, what they felt about the speaking and the writing, and that can most often is just a message to me, but sometimes students will call me and we'll have a little post-mortem about it. But I didn't get the chance here because he had to go straight back to Japan. And then quite a few weeks went by and I heard nothing. And so I was a little bit concerned because I was fairly confident he should get what he wanted. But when you don't hear, quite often you think something's not gone the right way, and maybe the student doesn't want to share this. They're not feeling their best. They're feeling a bit despondent. I didn't have a telephone number for him anyway, so I just waited to see what might happen. And then out of the blue, I had a very excited phone call. He had got the result, but he'd been very busy in his old job in Japan, so he hadn't had a chance to call me. And it was good news. He had a mix of 8s and 7s and 7.5s. I think the 7 was in the writing and the others were 8s and 7.5. So everything was hunky-dory, everything was fine, and he had what he needed, and he could start his new job. And the hospital were absolutely over the moon too, because they could get him into that new job, and then he could bring his wife and his daughter to London. Okay, so a few months later, there is a sequel to this. I had a call from the hospital again, and this time his wife, who is a nurse, also needed lessons. And so I was absolutely delighted to help her as well. And so it was a nice situation altogether. So they both got through the IELTS and managed to make a new life in London. So it was a nice story. Now, the moral of the story is it has a happy ending, but the stakes were very high. I wouldn't advise you to try and do it in a month. It is a very short time indeed. And unless you're really close and it's just a few small tweaks, it's actually not enough time to do a great deal. So do try not to leave it that late. He had already taken the exam three times, I think, and he was prepared. So it wasn't quite that bad. But unless you're in that position, a month is not enough time. It was through a lot of work, dedication, and diligence that the result worked out. But the moral of the story is do not underestimate what it takes to get these high bands. And I know lots of people, as I mentioned at the beginning, who've taken the exam many, many times and who've taken a long time. You know, somebody recently had taken 6 years and they'd taken the exam maybe about 10 times. And that's a lot of wasted money and a lot of wasted time. So preparation and not underestimating how much you need to do are really important for getting these high scores. So get support, get the support you need so that you don't waste a lot of your life and a lot of your money. Okay, so thank you for watching that. I hope that you might be inspired by Takeshi's story.